What's going on, guys? K-Pen here, and welcome back. And welcome to Season 22 of the GOBattleLeague. And in this video, I'll be featuring 3 buffed and strong Pokemon from the recent season's move updates. Emolga, which got a rework to Discharge, making it deal less damage, but it now costs less, along with a buff to Acrobatics that makes it cheaper. Lapras, which is now incredibly strong, being given Psywave and Sparkling Aria, which is just a better Surf, and Dusclops, which makes use of that Hex buff, dealing more damage and generating more energy. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Emolga into Clodsire. Terrible lead, we're going to save swap into Lapras, so we do have 2 better answers for it in the back, and they bring in a Spiritomb. Now, Spiritomb does have access to the buffed Rock Tomb as well. And because of that, along with it being a Sucker Punch user, you'd think this would be a bad matchup for Lapras. And well, if you're to commit shields, you would be right because of that Rock Tomb debuff, but Lapras does actually win the zeros against Spiritomb, which forces a shield for my opponent, and that is massive because Emolga loves shield advantage since it just hits so hard. Now my opponent does get the farm down there. I'm going to bring him to my Emolga, and now I'm going to over farm as much as possible and then go for a Discharge to take out the Spiritomb. I won't be able to farm down with that Rock Tomb debuff, but that is okay. We're going to go for the Discharge right here, KOs the Spiritomb, and because we're debuffed, we're going to save swap into our Dusclops, and they have a Grumpig. Grumpig, another very strong pick this season as well. But unfortunately for them, since we baited out that Spiritomb, Dusclops does have a positive matchup here in the back, especially since we have a little bit of an energy lead from that swap there. Do land a Hex or a Shadow Punch, got a shield from a previous one, and I will outpace to this next Shadow Punch before they reach their second Shadow Ball, which takes them out. And that is very, very fortunate because I'm not quite in Earthquake range. So I will be able to outpace to this Ice Punch regardless, which it does land. And from here, when my opponent lands that Earthquake, I can just let this go, save swap in, or not save swap, but swap back into my Emolga, outpace to an Acrobatics, which does massive damage. Clodsire is very bulky, but look at that. That's some pretty respectable damage there. They will fire off a Sludge Bomb to take out the Emolga. And what happened to be a hard loss lead, a loss swap, ends up being a win where these 3 Pokemon each put in a ton of work and was able to flip that matchup. GG's. Next battle, we lead Emolga into Sableye. Another buffed Pokemon this season, being given access to Dazzling Gleam as well as the Foul Play rework, where now instead of it being 665 for the Shadow Claws, it is straight 5. So just like Discharge, it got its energy or its cost reduced, but also its damage reduced. And for Sableye, that is a very big buff because even though the regular is able to benefit from that pacing, the Shadow is where that will really shine due to the Shadow Claw damage, as well as being able to spam off those foul plays very quickly. My opponent here does bring in a Wigglytuff. We do reach the Acrobatics, full send it, that lands, brings the Wiggly all the way into the red. And from here, I'm get to bring in my Lapras because Wiggly absolutely destroys Dusclops. And now they save swap into Grumpig, and we have our own Dusclops for this. First Shadow Punch does get shielded, which is perfectly fine because I want to test the bulk of Dusclops. I'm like, it's a Grumpig, hits very hard. I want to see if a Shadow Ball would KO from that range. I was thinking I would just hang on, but we'll never know. They Dynamic Punch baited. We land the Shadow Punch, get the farm down, and then my opponent does concede. GG's. Next battle, we lead Emolga into Grumpig. Now we get to see how this lead matchup does work. Grumpig having access to the Dynamic Punch and Shadow Ball. We farm up to the potential Acrobatics. We're going to bait with the Discharge. I'm expecting them to shield, but they don't. And that didn't even do half health, which was surprising. So Grumpig is actually decently bulky there, considering how hard Emolga hits. I'm going to overfarm with energy, and I'm going for the acrobatics. Saw that damage. My opponent's like, I could survive another discharge, so I want to force them to give up a shield here. Instead of getting punished by a no shield in that situation, which they do, they land the Shadow Ball, and Grumpig took that one fairly easily in the lead scenario there. To be fair, they did call a bait in the lead, but other than that, it seemed to be pretty lopsided in Grumpig's favor. I do bring in Dusclops, so I'm going to fire off the Shadow Punch right away, since I don't want to have to give up a shield to a potential Shadow Ball. See what they come in with, and it's an Azumarill. Now, this is a fairly neutral matchup where we're both hitting for neutral fast move damage and neutral charge move damage. The only difference is Dusclops does spam off moves quicker, while Azu does fire off the harder hitting ones. Out comes through the Play Rough from the Azu, does land. It looks like we will go down to the next Play Rough. So I'm going to load up on energy. I'm at the back-to-back moves. I was hoping they overfarm there, so I'd be able to fire off this next Shadow Punch, but they do not. And that's okay. I can let this go, and I'm banking on Lapras being able to carry this end game here. So I bring in Lapras. They have a Primeape, and this isn't looking good. My back's up against the wall here. I just feel like I need to call a bait in order to win, which I do, and that is huge because now I have a chance to win. I showed up this Rage Fist, and I need to get the Overfarm correct. If I get the Psywave Overfarm correct, I'm in a good spot, but I Overfarm one too short there. I should have taken that Karate Chop damage to Overfarm just a little bit more to the next Sparkling Aria, because as you'll see, I'm very close to the back-to-back, but not quite. As one more Psywave, we get there, but they have the Play Rough. So if I just took that extra Karate Chop of damage, we would have been able to take this game. But alas, we did not. And down goes Lapras. GG's. Next battle, Emolga into Wigglytuff. Now we do outpace to an Acrobatics before they reach a potential Swift. So I will load up to the Acrobatics, and I'm going to bait with the Discharge. The reason why I'm going to bait with the Discharge is because if they no-shield it, which you can see here, you'll still outpace to another Discharge or even a potential Acrobatics before they reach an Icy Wind. Where if they default and settle for the Swift, you will be able to hang on and reach yet another Discharge. It's very nice. Now, it doesn't quite KO Wiggly there, but that does lead to a very nice Psywave down for my Lapras. They bring in a Malamar, and now this is a little bit tricky because out of the two Pokemon I have left, Malamar does Core Break them. Fortunately, that Sparkling Aria plus the Psywaves do half health, so it looks like just two Sparkling Arias will be able to do it here. Now I load up on energy. I swap to try and catch the superpower, but my opponent, they hold on to their energy. Very nice patience from them. And now they get to fire off those foul plays. That foul play rework still did a lot of damage. Looks like two foul plays do KO Dusclops, which is kind of unfortunate. I was hoping maybe it would take two foul plays plus a decent amount of additional Psywaves, or maybe potentially three. But that is not the case as they bring in a Glaring Wheezy. And I'm thinking, you know what? I have a chance to win this. They go for a Brutal Swing here. Take me out. I can just farm down with Lapras and leave with a ton of energy, but they go for a Sludge. Maybe they're on Sludge Overheat, Sludge Play Rough. Either way, the same idea stands where I'm going to be able to get to these back-to-back moves. They do have two shields, so this will force both shields. And at this point, actually, them going for the Sludge made it a little bit trickier for me because their switch clock was up in time, so I got less farm as opposed to them running Brutal Swing where I would have gotten more farm with Lapras. So I'm like, you know what? My win condition at this point is calling a foul play bait, which we do, and that is massive. So now Lapras is able to shield the next, hang on, reach the Surf. This will KO the Malamar, and now it becomes a fast move race against the Glaring Wheezy, and we're very low, but so are they. And the Psywaves are able to do it with Lapras hanging on with 1 HP. GG's. Next battle, Emolga into yet another Wigglytuff. We know how to play this from last time. I'm going to load up to the Acrobatics and fire off the Discharge bait. Because like I said, if they shield the Discharge, you'll be able to reach an Acrobatics. And if they no shield the Discharge, that's fine. You will be able to still reach a second one. So they go for the Swift, as you'll see here. We do hang on. We hang on a little bit better than we did last time. So perhaps that this is how it would normally play out, where the last time it looks like the Wigglytuff got a charm breakpoint, which is why we survived on as little HP as we did. So maybe something to look out for in the future. I bring in Lapras, they bring in a Shadow Lola Marowak, a no shield, and that Sparkling Aria does massive damage to the Kanto Marowak. We do shield up to respect a potential Rock Slide. I'm not even sure, looking back, I'm not even sure that a potential Rock Slide or not, but either way, we wanted to preserve health on our Lapras just because of how good this thing is. They bring in a Shadow Golurk, so double Mudslap backline. But seeing this Golurk, this game's over. They're going to have to go for a Dynamic Punch to take me out here. They go for a Shadow Punch. We will hang on again with 1 HP and reach another Sparkling Aria to force that second shield and final shield from them. And in doing so, this game's just over. I overfarm here. One off the back-to-back. They make a catch. Does not matter. We take out the Wigglytuff with two more hexes and leave with a Shadow Punch to get rid of the Golurk. As the move comes through and down it goes. GG's. Next battle, we lead Emolga into Forretress. Now another Pokemon that has access to Rock Tomb, which hits us for super effective damage, but Forretress does not hit too hard, so we're fine staying in here. As well as the fact that it's a little bit of a court breaker due to us having the Lapras in the back. We go for Discharge Bait. We do successfully bait. We go for the bait in this situation because they're a Rock Tomb user. They want to debuff our attack before they take damage. And in doing so, we hang on and reach an Acrobatics, which will do some very nice and respectable damage to the Forretress. Now, since I don't want to bring in my Lapras here, I'm going to bring in the Dusclops. I do give up a shield to respect a potential Earthquake. Honestly, I don't know the new Volt Switch counts to the buffed Rock Tomb and Earthquake. Like, there's a very good chance that could have only potentially been a Rock Tomb and was just a poor shield. I don't know. Something I will learn later on in the season. Now I swap into Lapras trying to catch a Hydro Cannon there. The reason why I don't throw any of that energy on the Dusclops is because I'm debuffed, and storing all that energy to spam out later when I'm non-debuffed is going to be a lot more energy efficient and useful. Now, unfortunately, I'm like, okay, cool, I'll swap to Lapras. I'll take super effective from the rollouts, but they're on Hydro Cannon Ice Beam. They can't hit me for anything, but they're on Skull Bash, and that absolutely rocks the Lapras. Fortunately, though, they have a Claydol in the back, and me having all this energy stored onto the Dusclops can be very useful. I unfortunately overtapped there to throw an extra Hex, and I'd overtap again. So a bit of a misplay going over 100 energy twice, but either way, we do have enough energy stored on our Dusclops to get the final shield from the Forretress, then take it out, as well as throw one more Hex and yet a third Shadow Punch to take out the Claydol. GG's. And that Blastoise running Skull Bash there is actually a big reason why I'm running Skull Bash on my own Lapras, is for the opposing Lapras mirror, where if one is running Skull Bash and another's Ice Beam, it's just miserable for the Ice Beam user. So in order to have as advantageous of a matchup there as I can, especially with a Pokemon as good as Lapras, it does help out a ton. Our next battle, Emolga into Toxapex, and they are staying in there, which is very, very nice, meaning that they're most likely core broken, and they don't even build up to a Sludge Wave. They only throw 9 Poison Jabs, which can only be Brine, so I can let it go, reach a second Discharge, as well as a third to most likely get a shield and switch advantage from them if that's what they're willing to do. But no, they go down both shields, and now at this point, 2 shield Lapras or Dusclops probably just going to run away with the game no matter what they have. I will give up a shield to respect the potential Sludge Wave it is. Don't quite get the Psy Wave down in time, but this is only Brine. We're not worried at all. We will let it go, and we do get the farm down. In that lead scenario, if they did build up to that Sludge Wave, I would respect it because, again, if they're staying with Toxapex there, they're most likely ABA weak to it. But in this situation, because we got both shields, I was happy letting it go. Now they bring in a Gastrodon. we're able to land a Skull Bash to buff up our defense. Now this is only a body slam, which does pitiful damage. We can just let it go. And now I'll load up, fire off a Sparkling Aria before their next body slam, which will take them out. They come in with a jump bluff and this game is over. Aerial Ace won't KO from there, especially with my defense raised stage. So they're gonna have to go for an energy ball. But in doing so, I get to land another Skull Bash and come in with my Dusclops. Even if I didn't land that Skull Bash there, Dusclops would still run away with this, since I do have access to double super effective Ice Punches here. Ice Punch will land, and it will take out the jump bluff. GG's. Next battle, we lead Emolga into Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion, the meta titan of the past 2 seasons. So this is a very good tell as to the power of Emolga in this kind of situation. I do showed up the first move, because I'm thinking like a Shadow Drapion crunch is going to do a ton, and I don't want them to potentially farm me down afterwards. So unfortunately, I do get a defense drop on the first crunch, which means I'm gonna have to double shield here, and I do bait successfully. I was hoping with the first discharge bait that I would be able to outpace to the acrobatics before they reach a second crunch, but it seems like that in order for you to outpace to an acrobatics in this situation, you would need to double bait and then land the acrobatics, and therefore you'll reach it on the CMP tied to their third crunch. They come in Shadow Gator, trying to get a Shadow Claw farm down. Aren't quite able to do that until I get their final shield with a discharge, and now I can just hard pivot Lapras here, as after that Thundershock damage and Psywave damage, they're just about in Shadow Punch range. So they can pivot out, they store a Hydro Cannon, pivot out, that's fine, we'll be able to tank it. But the fact that they threw a single Hydro Cannon into my Lapras already is very, very nice, especially because it's a big waste of energy there from the resistant move. They bring in Azu, very common team. Drapion, double water. We land the first Skull Bash. We're going to fire off the second Skull Bash on the CMP tie to their next play rough. Hoping this KOs, but the Azu, just a little too bulky, does hang on. Despite the fact our defense is double buffed, that play rough will KO. I come in Dusclops, and because coming in Dusclops right away, and it's 3 hexes to a move, I will outpace to the Shadow Punch before they reach a second Hydro, which does KO the Gator. And from here, this game is over because I can just hex down that Azu. GG's. Next battle, Emolga into Talonflame. Great lead for us. Even better if they aren't on Flame Charge, which most Talons nowadays are running the Fly Brave Bird set. 7 Thundershocks, then discharge. They shield it, and then if they overfarm here, you can throw 2 more Thundershocks and get to yet another discharge, which is very nice because now you've taken both shields from your opponent, and when I've got both shields from them, I just like to let it go and get a ton of energy on Lapras. However, if your opponent undertaps the move and throws, alignment to get off a move, I just like to let it go because they have to Brave Bird there. If they go for a Fly, you'll survive it and reach your second discharge, which will KO. Or if they even go for a Flame Charge, you'll still survive it and reach a second discharge, which KOs. They have to go for the Brave Bird to take you out. And in doing that, you come in with Lapras and just start side-waving them down with that debuff defense. Or they are forced to swap out. Here, my opponent does have a Ferrothorn, and now this would have been nice if I had Ice Beam on the Lapras, but I do not, so I'm forced to pivot into my Dusclops and start spamming off these Fire Punches. My opponent is going to land a second Power Whip here. Does some decent damage into the Dusclops, and this matchup is looking a little troublesome at this point, especially since that Talonflame is just a little healthy. Now they have an Oranguru in the back, does get to hit us for super effective damage with the Trailblazes. And this matchup is doable at this point, but it is going to be very tricky. Definitely come from behind match here. We do land the Trailblaze. I'm going to overfarm as much as I possibly can, just so I can take out that Ferrothorn if it comes back in, or at least force them to throw. So Sparkling Aria does take them out. And here I overfarm, reach another Sparkling Aria. This can do some decent damage. And now I pivot into Dusclops, hoping I can snipe with that Hex, but they do hang on, take me out with a Mirror Shot. Now we get the Psywave down. Can we get the Sparkling Aria before the Talon takes us out? No, we were 5 Psywaves away. And in that instance, the Incinerate does register and take us out. GG's. Next battle, Diggersby. Now you may think this is a terrible matchup for the Emolga. Thundershocks double resisted, Discharge double resisted, so we're gonna have to build all the way up to the Acrobatics, right? And that Diggersby is hitting for neutral in return with the quick attacks and fire punches. Well, let me tell you something. That was actually a very smart play by my opponent to go for the Scorching Sands there, because Emolga wins the zero shield scenario against Diggersby. The Acrobatics hit so hard that you don't even, that Thundershock damage, even though it's double resisted, doesn't matter. You win the zeros there. Those Thundershocks and Acrobatics KO. Absolutely insane. But the reason why my opponent was very smart in going for that Scorching Sands there is because you would think, oh, it's double or single resisted. Why not just go for the fire punches? Well, if they get the attack drop due to the Scorching Sands, they now win the zeros. So my opponent had a very, very smart play there. Something to keep note of for the future as well. Now in comes a Dusknoir, which does have access to Dynamic Punch. Very, very spammy. To it, I give up a shield to respect it. We do get it correct. And then my opponent over farms by 1 here, just a little too much, letting us get off the Sparkling Aria. And in doing so, we're able to take that game. GG's. Even if they didn't over farm there, I would have just saved my shield for Dusclops, as I would have been able to survive it, and the same outcome would have been. Next battle, Shadow Drapion. Now I'm going to play this one a little bit differently. I'm going to test Emolga's bulk, let this Crunch go through, and see what it can really withstand. Crunch lands, does a lot of damage, but Emolga tanked that a little bit better than I thought it would. It was still in the yellow after, which was very nice. So now I'm going to over farm here. And I'm not sure if I can reach 2 more discharges before I get Poison Sting down. So I'm going to settle for the Acrobatics instead. I may be able to, I don't know. I'd have to run like some sims on it, or maybe somebody in the comments can tell me. But we play it safe, go for the Acrobatics and take Switch. Now they come in a Shadow Gator. I didn't want to hard swap out here because if I hard swap into Lapras and then they pivot out, then the Gator's just onto my Dusclops. So I let my Emolga go down, get some Thundershock damage. And now, unless they're running Crunch, their moveset is resisted, and Lapras soaks that energy very, very nicely. They're firing off yet another Hydro Cannon. This is going to land, do some decent damage, but again, not enough to threaten the Lapras. And we reach another Sparkling Aria. This will take out their Gator. See what they have in the back. It's a Jump Bluff, Shadow Jump Bluff at that. And up a shield, even shield does not matter. This game is Dusclops' to win. Ice Punch lands, does a lot of damage to the Jump Bluff. And from here, the game wasn't already long over. It definitely is now. As we reach yet another Ice Punch, and my opponent does concede. GG's. So, as I said in the beginning of the video, all 3 of these Pokemon are very strong and definitely have their place in the meta. However, I have to give Team MVP to Lapras. This Mon will just carry you in a lot of the matches and is a massive threat to look out for this season. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.